Hello and welcome to the theElpyDimension. I am your guide, Elpy. Today is the first day of spring, the 20th of March, 2025, and it is 35 degrees Fahrenheit out. So what are we, almost to 0 degrees Celsius? Something like that. And I have not, this is mixed worm bin number 1, and it has been 35 days. 35 days since the 13th of February, 2025, since I've been in here. Isn't that crazy? Oh, man. Time definitely got away from me. I'm just uploading my... I checked in on the Canadian night crawlers first because it had been 28 days for them. And that was 2 days ago. So you'll actually... It's a little bit backwards. I was going to go completely backwards. Normally I go 1 through 4, blue, and then Canadian Nightcrawler. But now I posted that video first. And to those of you in the future, none of this matters. But man, 35 days. Okay, so this is a pretty strong population. And last we left off, plan was to... brain work. My brain is just refusing to work. The plan was to harvest this bin, was taking this bin start over. The plan was not to harvest this bin. The plan was to move this bin towards harvest. Now what I'm looking at is, I think what we're seeing here is worm castings, but I think those are hatched cocoons, because we have a worm that just fell off, a cocoon there that's not hatched, and we have more of these hatched looking cocoons. Very interesting. So I see some mites running around. Yeah, so these guys are going to get folded up, and they're going to hang out next door for a minute. Okay, so the top of this looks like, wow, they're done. The castings, that bubble mailer really makes a difference. While today is cool, the last 3 days have actually been really warm. We've gotten up into the 70s. So this is like 56 degrees Fahrenheit. So like 13 or 14 Celsius, I think. So this is pretty chilly in here. Yeah, but we see the top. Now, I think last we left off as well, there was a lot of breeding going on in here, to the degree that I felt like, man, I'm gonna leave these guys alone for a while. But I really didn't mean to leave them alone for 35 days. But yeah, it's pretty. This stuff looks pretty cool. So I don't even remember where I fed last time. I think sort of kind of in the middle. I was talking about moving it towards harvesting, and I think I was moving all the bigger material over to the right side. So the goal would be to harvest the left side first. So let's go ahead. Speaking of, my oh my, you guys, what do I do with you? I was going to say let's do the right side first, but let's check the left side first. There's a cocoon right there. Actually, there's 2 cocoons. Focus camera, not on my finger. Yeah, so as we would hope, they're still breeding in here, right? Holy moly. Which is interesting. Are they breeding? There's another cocoon. Are they breeding out of panic? There's some breeders. you know, because I haven't been feeding. More cocoons. So, yeah. They're not breeding because they're like, there's so much amazing food in here. But yeah, the material is kind of dense because it's compacted, if you will. Let's remember to put some of the bigger stuff. This is, I don't want to squish anybody, a piece of wood that's been in here for, I don't think this is the pine I just added. I guess it could have been. I think every time I'm like, wait, is that the pine or isn't it? But, yeah, so we're seeing lots of worms. They aren't particularly plump. I think that's actually that plastic. But lots of cocoons for sure. All right, I'm going to have to be, sorry guys. Just kind of have to dig in. So I'm going to, yeah, I just never stop seeing cocoons. So these guys just kept, I know, if not the last feeding, the last couple of feedings were in the middle. So that's what, more, well, yeah, more in the middle. So they look good, but I'm not. They also look kind of scrawny unless those are young. Well, I guess we could look at them and see. Like this guy looks really scrawny. But I don't see a clitellum on it, so. But even this guy has a clitellum. I shouldn't be surprised though. I mean, 35 days. That's not to say they have plenty to eat in here. Or they did. So they're definitely not going to starve in one of my bins. I say that because I tend to overfeed in a month's time. They're not going to starve in a month's time in one of my bins. But this is at the same time, you could argue that, well, you have a really large population. So interesting that after a month of no activity, we see moisture like that, that it's wet. It's not even moist, it's wet. And of course there's a swampy smell to it. So that's really, I didn't expect that. I'm not totally surprised. I mean, again, I haven't been in here to dry anything up or do anything, but like, oh, okay. Huh. So, yeah, it's wet down there. Yep. Okay. Well, this material, though, besides these bigger chunks that I'm picking out, is pretty well broken down. So I'm pleased to see that, because it just looks like it just really needs to dry more than anything. Which today I found, while cleaning, I found some very expired boxes of cereal. I know. Honey Bunches of Oats, and they are going to get it. So, I don't have as much food scraps as I would really like after such a long absence, but what can you do? I'm just going to feed them what I can, and I'll probably have more for them next week. Gardening season has begun in that I'm dropping lots of seeds. It's very exciting. I still have more to drop, but I think I've dropped perhaps, I think it's around 85 different varieties of fruits, vegetables, and flowers. This year I'm finally, there's a spot in my yard along the fence I share with my neighbors that I've been saying for years. Let's go ahead and drop some of the top stuff down. That I've been saying for years I wanted to, what I've been saying is floralize it. Wanted to put a flower bed there, a flower garden, and I never have. Well, this year, with everything being, you know, there's definitely stuff growing out there, but things haven't kicked off yet. And I'm getting the jump this year, finally. There's a lot of poison ivy out there, so I decided a few days ago to go ahead and glove up real well and pull it out by hand. I do respond. I do get a rash and itchy rash from poison ivy. It's not anything extreme. I should have been wearing a long sleeve shirt, but I made sure to get inside. It's probably no more than 45 minutes, which might be too much, but I've got a tea tree soap that a lady made and was selling at an art show, and she claims that it helps with poison ivy. I used it just because, why not? I don't know that, I tried really hard not to expose myself to it, though at times the roots definitely did sort of touch my skin, and I was like, why didn't you wear a long sleeve shirt? But the thing that I've heard and I believe about poison ivy is that it is, what causes the rash in people is called urushiol. Urushiol. URUSHIOL, I believe, oil. So you got to treat it like an oil. If you believe you've been exposed to poison ivy, then wash the affected area or even tool or piece of clothing as though it has motor oil on it. I wish I could remember the YouTuber whose video I watched that's how they described it. Treat it like you have motor oil on. You can't just wash your hands to get motor oil off. They said that the most important part is the friction. So like get something to scrub it off. So I washed the heck out of my hands and my arms. I had one little sort of itchy blister last night that I accidentally popped it. And then I went and washed my hands. Now, mind you, you can't, poison ivy is not contagious in terms of, I'm saying this because growing up I thought it was. If I have poison ivy rash, I can't spread that to you unless I still have poison ivy on me. If the oil is still on me, I can spread that to you, but you can't get poison ivy from someone else's poison ivy rash. You can't pop someone else's poison ivy blister and then get poison ivy. That's not how it works. The blister you get is a sort of dermatitis. That's your skin responding to the toxicity of the oil. You know, you're having this allergic reaction, this toxic reaction, which some people are not affected by poison ivy, which is fantastic for them. So I pulled a whole lot of poison ivy. I had my gardening gloves, one pair of gardening gloves, and I also put on a pair of disposable gloves underneath, just in case, you know, whatever. If anything can get through the glove or if the glove tears, then I've got a second line of defense. And keep in mind that poison ivy is still poison ivy even when it's dormant or dead. The oil still exists on it. But what's cool about if you get rid of it now is it doesn't have any leaves right now. So I know where the poison ivy is, and I'm, you know, I couldn't come into your yard and pick out, that's a poison ivy vine. They have runners, so they're a vine, and they can either climb up. They can also kind of form a bush. So they're climbers, but they also sprawl, and they'll lay down roots wherever they touch the ground. But knowing in my yard the situation, I can look and say that's more than likely a poison ivy vine right there. So what's cool is that I believe it's much easier to eradicate the poison ivy, or I expose myself less when it doesn't have any leaves and it's just a root. And so I threw it. Don't put that stuff in your compost. I mean, I don't know. Maybe some people would say, I'm going to tell you don't put that stuff in your compost, because even if it doesn't, if it breaks down and it doesn't affect you in terms of toxicity, in terms of, you know, getting a rash, you still, like, what if there's a root nodule or something that survives your compost and it starts to grow in your garden? I don't think it's a good idea. So where was I going with that? It's a little bit warmer down there in the middle where I had fed last. Hope you guys don't mind me rambling about poison ivy while we look at the worms. See that everything looks pretty well broken down. And there in the middle where I fed last, I'm going to expect to find remnants. But yeah, so I feel good about what I did. I need to continue with my process of getting to the poison ivy before it starts to leaf out. Because I don't want to use glyphosate, which is the main ingredient in Roundup. I don't want to use it, but that's what a lot of people say you got to revert to if you have poison ivy. I wish I could rent like a goat or two and put them on a leash for a day, because goats eat poison ivy. And that would be awesome. And just be like, hey guys, go to town. But yeah, so I'm pulling up the poison ivy, and I'm going to start. I went ahead and took some bricks and just made a rough outline of where this flower bed is going to be. And yeah, it's going to be sweet. I should save the rest of this conversation for getting out there, right? But okay. So you see I've been digging stuff out and filling it back in, and it's really, really mostly broken down. Lots of worms all throughout. So they aren't in here dying. It wasn't as wet down at the bottom there in the middle. Here is a disposable glove that says it's commercially compostable. There's actually another glove in there, I think. Yeah. And I'm just experimenting. But even though we aren't seeing... There's a baby worm. Lots of baby worms in that pile. It's still pretty compact just from the level of moisture, but also the fact that I've not been in here. So lots of baby worms. It's not just baby worms, so and still lots of cocoons. Seems like here in the middle where we fed last, we unearthed a whole lot of baby worms. But that probably is where the most goodies are. And I'm picking out the biggest clumps. So I was saying last time And if you don't know, if you're a newer worm farmer, if you have a good population of adults and you come into your bin, as I have in the past, little baby, and find only babies, if you know you had mature worms before and now you only have babies, then something is wrong and you had a die-off of the adults. Because again, they will breed to, even if the situation is dire, they'll breed to say, oh my gosh, hurry up and reproduce. Things aren't looking good. And that, just like in the example I used before, was when your plants bolt. That the plants recognize it's getting too hot, and so they hurry up and send up a flower stalk to hurry up and produce flowers to then produce seed. So yeah, I'm definitely seeing a mix of adults of all age ranges, which is good. None of the adults, though, are a nice, healthy, juicy size. But they're also kind of wanting for better food. That said, the material looks really good. And there's our little pile that I've been collecting. Yeah, this stuff is... I think I had said that I hope to start harvesting in April. That could happen if things have dried up more, unless I want to start harvesting from the top, because I still have a whole bucket of castings. I've only used a little bit of castings that I harvested from bin 2. So, all right. Now, I'm going to take my collection and move it over here. It's quite large with that stone. Because all of that is going to go over here anyways, but we want to investigate and see what... These were some of the stems that we put in there from outside material, which I do have some leaves. I'm not bringing inside today, but probably at the next feeding. So yeah, there's worms over here as well. Still lots of worms. Guess I don't need to be separating the big stuff because it's staying over here. All right. I'd like to say at first glance, looks like there's more worms over here. This is a mango pit. Here's another chunk of wood. As we would expect, because this is where the extra, all the chunks are. So that's food. Yeah, there definitely is more worms on this side. And actually, if I was going to be doing any separating, it would be to kind of separate out the castings. But then again, it's pretty even par in terms of the leveling of this. So we'll deal with that when we get there. Because most likely a lot of like this stuff won't be broken down. Well, this one might. I think this was the okra stem. Yeah, this will. By the time we get to harvesting this right side, any big chunks that aren't broken down, like are these fruit fly or like strawberry seeds or something, like this piece of wood, this piece of pine, that's just, I'm just gonna harvest it out or move it into the new material when it's harvesting time, But this stem, let's go ahead and help them out by breaking it up a little bit. Well, this one's a little bit more firm. Oh, but there's a worm hanging out in there. But now they'll have more access. So this was a root ball, and it's slowly getting beaten down. I think this was to a Shungiku edible chrysanthemum. And there are worms hanging out all over. Yep. I don't really want to like squeeze this. There's a lot of moisture in this that was down at the bottom, so that's interesting. But all in all, I think it looks great. There's a little pocket in this corner of lots of worms for that small of a space. In terms of feeding, what am I think I will give them a little bit of paper. No, I'll probably just give them the cereal. Oh, there's our breeding worms. So we'll feed in this front right corner, since this is the last spot that we'll check. Looking good, guys, despite the neglect. All right. Just make sure it's all, yeah, really, I mean, if we're being honest, besides the big chunks, as far as my method of worm composting goes, yeah, it's a little worm ball, right? Or was. As far as my method of composting goes, all of this is, I'm looking at it like, heck, it's really just the bigger stuff that's standing out. All right, well, let's see. I said, here's that pumpkin stem from months and months ago. It's finally mushy. They're finally really starting to degrade. The thing I was wondering about was, do I want to put any paper in here? I don't know if I do, because I don't know if I do. Let me go see what I'm gonna do here. Okay, they aren't gonna get all of that, but I've got some rotten bulbs of garlic because apparently I have no idea what I'm doing when it comes to storing garlic. And some very moldy cranberry walnut, like a vegan bread. And they are gonna get, here's our honey bunches of oats. And since I feel better, since this bin is a little bit on the drier side, or wetter side, because that it's already prepared to absorb some moisture. Now, okay. I'm gonna give them a little bit of my dry mix. And then got some dry oregano, a little bit more wet paper, and then a cup of water. Okay. It is going to get a little bit sloshy because we're down at the bottom here and there's not a lot of dry stuff to absorb. However, if it gets too dry, I need the water to help break down that bread and the dry cereal. So now throw in the bigger chunks of stuff, kind of down in the hole. All right. I think I fed my worm cereal a long time ago, so I don't remember how it went. It probably was mixed more with, as long as it's moist, you know, they'll, no problem. All right, so after 35 days, that is mixed worm bin number 1, and they are looking good and on track for harvest. Probably more like mid-April. And I'll start on the left, and yeah, I think it'll be really good. Looking forward to it, actually. And then the right side shouldn't be too far behind, maybe a couple of weeks. So wouldn't it be grand if I could harvest this whole bin by May 1st? We'll see. Thank you so much for your time and your interest. Oh, where's our... There's so many clumps of stuff there, I can't really get. Okay, we'll just put that there. Okay. Get our bubble mailer. All our little wormies and castings on it. They're like, what is going on? And then our other blanket. And there you have it. Thank you so much for your time and your interest. Check out the other bins. Check out and see how my newest bin started on the 25th of January. Canadian night crawlers. And I think I have, yeah, they have their own playlist on my channel. Otherwise, you can find all my worm videos under my playlist, All Things Worm Farming. I also include there, I need to be adding more, but videos from other worm farmers that I support, and check them out as well. So, okay, over to bin 2 we go. And, oh yeah, my other bin, the next youngest bin, I believe I started September 17th of 2024, and that would be the blue worm bin. So I might want to get to them because they're a smaller population, smaller bin, and yeah, I should check them out. Thank you so much for your time and your interest. Be safe, be well. Bye for now.